Never shall innocent blood be shed. Yet the blood of the wicked shall flow like a river. The three shall spread their blackened wings and be the vengeful striking hammer of God. You people have been chosen to reveal our existence to the world. You will witness what happens here today, and you will tell of it later. All eyes to the front. You must watch, dear. It'll all be over soon.
Now you will receive us. We do not ask for your poor or your hungry. We do not want your tired and sick.
It is your corrupt we claim.
It is your evil that will be sought by us.
With every breath, we shall hunt them down.
Each day, we will spill their blood till it rains down from the skies.
Do not kill, do not rape, do not steal. These are principles which every man of every faith can embrace.
These are not polite suggestions. These are codes of behavior. And those of you that ignore them will pay the dearest cost.
There are varying degrees of evil. We urge you lesser forms of filth, not to push the bounds and cross over into true corruption, into our domain.
But if you do, one day you will look behind you and you will see we three. And on that day, you will reap it.
And we will send you to whatever God you wish.
And shepherds we shall be, for thee, my lord, for thee. Power hath descended forth from thy hand. May swiftly carry out thy command. So we shall flow ever forth to thee, and teeming with souls shall it ever be.
In nomine Patri.
Et Filii, Spiritus Sancti.
How far are we gonna take this, Star?
The question is not how far. The question is, do you possess the Constitution? The depth of faith to go as far as is needed?
All right. Good evening, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Just woke up from a little afternoon nap after work.
Nice. All right.
I took my nap earlier in the day.
Yeah, but Steve, you're a boomer. We expect you to take naps now.
I knew you'd have some comeback like that.
Yeah, you can't stand the heat and all that.
Well, he's got the perfect last name.
I don't know. I have to live with it for good or for bad.
All right. So tonight's topic, Cluster B. Now, if you've been in the red pill for more than 30 seconds, you'll have heard this topic come up. And we spend a lot of time talking about how to diagnose it, and much has been written even by the medical community about how to diagnose it. And
can I correct you?
Go ahead.
How to identify it? We don't diagnose. We identify.
Good point. That's correct.
We're not licensed psychologists, and hey.
Thank you. So somebody said that. Yeah, I was actually just going to say we're not licensed for any of this, but yeah, there is this game that the medical community tries to play where it says, well, if you're not licensed, then you can't identify it. To which I have to say, from personal experience, we're not 8 minutes in yet. Bull hockey.
There'd be some crazy women out there, and men, because it's not just women that are represented here. It's also men.
I have stats on that. It's actually
good.
Fairly enlightening stuff. Let's see if I just want to make sure I have the right. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay. There we go. Cool. Yeah, exactly. Shu. It's an appeal to authority. Yes, technically, in order to make a formal diagnosis, you need the credentials. That is true. I will not argue with them on that.
But is the problem merely physical?
Well,
so they don't really
it's
have
psychological,
do they?
Well, okay.
Yeah, I know. Psychological materialism basically is what many of this underpinnings as.
It does, however, turn out, and I will get into this later, or not much later though, that there is actually a physical component to this. And I think that's something that particularly men need to be aware of.
Yeah, they said their name's Legion, right?
Well,
so Nick, are you implying that there's a physical component, there's a psychological component, and a spiritual component?
Well, we are such soulless beings, body and soul together. Yep. We're not pure material. We're also living beings made in the image of God.
Guys, you're just dunking on tab 2 here of my
great minds think alike.
I had two guys. Dr. David Edgerton did give me a brief reply. Pretty much summed up what he said in our episode when we were talking about reviling wives. He thinks there's could be a demonic element here. Also talked to one of our listeners, Mark, sent me an email in this week, and he gave some helpful explanation. I think he actually did a little better. Well, he didn't give me a concise as the other guy, but he went into further detail, which I pretty much agree. So at least it got my theological, juices going to think about the idea again.
Oh, good. Because we're going to think about it some more tonight. Tonight, I do want to focus on coming up with solutions for how to deal with this. Because, well, I mean, in the red pill, we talk endlessly about how to identify it. And that's, and look, okay, I'm going to say one of the solutions up front is very, very obvious and very, very simple. If she's a plate, and you identify a cluster B, you ditch her. It's that easy, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, what about for everyone else in the red pill? I'm thinking like married red pill guys, guys,
Um,
you know, uh,
they're 2 words or 3 words with shoot, my grammar lessons. It's actually 3 words, but one's got the what's it called? The apostrophe re at the in the first word. You're effed.
Can
okay, but Nick, and there's another question here. What do you do with it when it's in your family? And there's a point
Yeah.
there that I'm trying to get at, because there is a,
Well, I mean, except by the grace of God, but
yeah. Um, so, and there's also some larger social implications for cluster B that I would like to get into as well, about I'm trying not to get started on a tangent here without building the base first. But there's a large problem with cluster B in dominating the public space.
could it
And
be it that
Sure.
there's no father in the household?
well, that's only part of it. What are the impacts of essentially worshiping the cluster B? You could talk about it for everyone from, of course, actors, like film actors, they get paid more than, CEOs, and they produce less for it. Of course, you've got YouTube creators, like us. Hi.
Some of them make deals with the devil.
Right. Yeah. So, but we worship cluster B essentially as a society. And I think that has done some pretty significant damage to us as well. So that's another thing that I'd like to get into. So regardless of whether or not we in our personal lives and relationships can exercise the simple strategy of ditch them, you're still going to have to deal with them at some point, whether you want to or not. And so that's what this episode tonight is about in my mind. So I guess let's get started. Now, yes, Nick?
What's an hour?
Is that big enough for everyone to read? Or do I need to make it bigger?
I'd make it bigger, but I can kind of read it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can read it.
Okay. Hopefully that's a little better. Okay. We're just going to focus on cluster B tonight. I don't want to spend too much time on how to identify them. The red pill guys have done very, very good streams on how to do that. But I do want to go over the different types so that we have a background to work with as we're trying to work through solutions here. I'll just read this. This is from Wikipedia. Make of that what you will, although I think this overview is actually pretty solid. Cluster B personality disorders are characterized by dramatic, impulsive, self-destructive emotional behavior and sometimes incomprehensible interactions with others. Well, right off the bat, I think we've described every woman on the planet. So, okay, we can just stop there, right? Well, no, because there's 4 types and they matter of quite a bit. Antisocial personality disorder. You guys would know this as sociopaths and psychopaths. That's where they actually are. This is their actual term for them. Is defined by a chronic pattern behavior that disregards the rights. Okay. But more importantly, the well-being of others. People with ASPD often exhibit behavior that conflicts with social norms, leading to issues with interpersonal relationship, employment, and legal matters. The condition generally manifests in childhood or early adolescence, with a high rate of associated conduct problems and a tendency for symptoms to peak in late adolescence to early adulthood. This is your serial killers tend to be in this bracket as well. Not all of them, but they can be. We'll get into it, but some of these are more male coded, and some of these are more male prevalent, and ASPD is one of the more male prevalent ones. Of course, we all know the famous borderline personality disorder, pervasive long-term pattern across several contexts of significant interpersonal relationship instability. I have experienced this personally in my life, in my family. Um, if any of my family's listening to me, you know who I'm talking about. But no names will be named. Extreme fear of abandonment and intense emotional outbursts. People with BPD frequently exhibit self-harming behaviors and engage in risky activities. They don't state it here, but BPD, particularly BPD women, have a penchant for being highly promiscuous sexually. It's actually stated in the full article that I'm not going to load up and read. And it's primarily caused by difficulty regulating emotions. Now, this is the first time something's come up that there might be a physical linkage to. And I won't get into the symptoms too much. Dissociation, pervasive sense of emptiness, and a distorted sense of self. Okay. Now, one you don't hear nearly as much about, but is also very female prevalent, is histrionic personality. These are excessive attention seekers, usually starting in adolescence, and also exhibit extreme sexual promiscuity. And it can actually be, when you read the DSM-5 on this, it is very difficult to distinguish between the two. There's a lot of overlap, so they end up looking for things like histrionics tend not to, they don't have as much prevalence, for example, in the self-harm category, right? So, where both of these tend to have, an excessive desire for approval, they're driven by different things. For the borderline, it's an extreme fear of abandonment. So, approve of me, that way you won't abandon me, right? There's a reason why it does, take a psychologist to sort this out. And then, of course, we have everyone's favorite. By the way, narcissists tend to be male. NPD is characterized by patterns of grandiosity, entitlement, low empathy. Note the similarity over here with ASPD. Low empathy could be disregarding the well-being of others easily, right? And it comes in two forms. It can manifest either as grandiose, thick-skinned. Basically, nothing you say to them will bother them at all because they're so convinced of their perfect, like, what your opinion doesn't matter. These are the ones that you typically think of when you think of narcissist, arrogant, social dominance, they'll exploit other ones, particularly when other people show what we would call beta traits.
You have the alpha side and the beta side.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
I mean, and there's a reason why this tends to be found more common in males.
Okay.
There is also they call it vulnerable. The other term you'll hear a lot is covert. So you have grandiose or overt narcissists, and then you have your vulnerable or covert narcissists. I have not found any data on which is more common. My experience suggests that it's actually the covert narcissists that are more common. And that would fit with that, was Nick, you were saying, you've got your alpha and your beta side. Well, if 10% of men are alphas and 90% are betas, well, then, okay. There's probably 10% of narcissists are grandiose and the rest are covert. So, That's my quick 10-minute run through what cluster B is and what it's made of.
I'd like to comment a little bit.
Go for it.
Now, the behaviors in here, it kind of all blurs together. Because if you're dealing with a cluster B person or okay, you're not diagnosing, you've identified or you're experiencing their behavior as cluster B. Let's say it that way. Because my experience, I can validate my own experience. And you can read through this and say, well, they do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah, here. Yeah. How do you identify them? You really can't. I experienced my first wife as BPD. My second wife, she was pretty good until the very end, but she wasn't BPD. But then she exhibited what I experienced as covert, malignant narcissism. And then when it comes in full bloom, okay, here, and then these behaviors get intermixed. So how can you really know? Well, it's kind of like a sense or a flavor. That's how I determine it. Can you identify the difference between sucking a lemon and sucking a lime? Yeah, but they're both damn sour, but I can identify the difference. Can I describe it? Not really.
Well, and I think this shows up best in how antisocial and narcissistic pair really well versus borderline and histrionic pair pretty well. Really, I think for most of us, we just need to start using the term cluster B. The reason that they cluster them together is because there is a lot of overlap in all four of these. You are going to see traits. Okay, let's say somebody is diagnosed with BPD, that you've got the diagnostic. Okay, the psychologist has blessed the diagnosis, right? Well, you're still going to see inappropriate seduction and excessive desire for approval out of a BPD. You're still going to see, typically out of a BPD, you're going to see more of the thin-skinned vulnerable forms of narcissism, but you'll see it. It's there. They often exhibit behavior that conflicts with social norms. Okay, so instead of sitting,
social norms.
Okay, this diagnosis thing, don't hold your breath.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to, the diagnosis is so unbelievably rare. And I've listened to a little bit of Dr. Hannah Spear,
mm-hmm.
who is a psychiatrist. She kind of talks about this. She makes sense. A lot of the stuff she talks about makes sense. But what she claims and has said is health professionals, especially female health professionals, are very reluctant to give any women, a diagnosis of BPD. Because it's kind of like there is no cure. So instead of doing that, they give them the diagnosis of ADHD or bipolar. Or just diagnose depression. I mean, anything but to label somebody as BPD.
Oh, okay, Steve. Can I segue off this? Because you're just giving me a layup here.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to say is for us in the red pill, frankly, all we need to know is cluster B or no. Okay. If she is cluster B, throw her in the trash bin and replace her with somebody else. Like, okay, if you're a plate spinner and you think you've got a cluster B on your hands, throw her in the trash, replace her with somebody else. You're done. You're out. You don't need to fret yourself with which one of these it is. Okay.
And the crazy sex isn't worth it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, even Rolo's told stories, and he is not with the BPD chick he was with today. You know, like most red pill guys will say, yeah, you don't want this in your life. And you don't. So for your average man, just be aware of what cluster B is, be aware of what it looks like, and be willing to just say, I can't prove you're cluster B because I'm not I can't give you the diagnostic, but you're doing too much of it and I don't like it. Goodbye. Right. Okay. So there's your solution if you're just a red pill plate spinner. And
two things. A, this is more red pill. It's vernacular. Don't stick your dick in crazy. And B, don't mess with demons.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So
or demonic activity, however you want to slice it,
Yeah. Just as a Christian, you are not required to deal with this. You're not required to invite this into your life. Okay. Just don't. It's not worth it. Okay. So
one more thing. It cannot be cured. As a general rule, it cannot be cured. You cannot be Sir Save-A-Ho. And by your love and prayers and whatever else, fix this person. It won't happen.
Steve, here's the segue. So I asked Grok, and I know LLMs are what they are, but the question is pretty simple. Is there a genetic component to the cluster B group of conditions? Simple prompt, right? Answer, yes, there is a significant genetic component to the cluster B personality disorders. This is why the psychologists do not want to hand out this diagnosis, okay? Because
this is adoption studies.
Oh, yeah. So twin studies, the twin studies are actually probably the most interesting here. And we'll get into it. But sorry, guys, you cannot fix her. Why? Because medical science cannot fix her. And it would take gene editing to
God.
Yeah. Well, it would take a medical miracle. And later on in this thing, it actually says we don't even know which genes cause it. We have no idea. It's probably some combination of genes that if we were to go edit them would literally make the genetics non-viable. So, it's like, can we even edit these things out of our genetics? All modern science says, no, I can't discount future breakthroughs. That is what it is. But today, all men, you need to know that if you're married to somebody with a BPD diagnosis or an HPD diagnosis, you're a man, that's probably what you're likely to be married to. You're set for, she is never going to get better. Okay. Not possible. Yes, you can manage it, but you will be dealing with that for the rest of your life. And so there's a point I want to make here. I've started watching, as I'm getting older, I'm watching other people get older, and there's other friends in my life who are starting to go through old age, and have family members going through. I'm trying to be nice here.
Oh, you're talking about me. I'm glad you didn't call me out by name.
As you get older, particularly in your 80s, and you enter mental decline, one thing that everyone I've talked to says that the things that the person was before, but they were covering up, so to speak, that they were covering for, like you go to psychotherapy, right? That's the only tool we have for managing cluster B. It doesn't work. Your brain is literally so old that you lose the ability to cover those things. And
the filters go away.
Hey, Steve,
and you say what's on your mind, kind of like our president.
Hey, Steve, as you've gotten older, how have your filters fared over the years?
I'd say my filters are the same.
Okay.
But I have the same affliction as Nick. don't give a shit if I piss people off or not.
Okay. Well, this is particularly true in the 80s. I've watched some I watched some grandparents go through it. You know, you really learn who the person actually is at their core, who they, you know, not who they presented themselves to be their whole lives, but who they actually were. In their 80s, particularly the late 80s. It starts at around 82 to 85 and it goes downhill pretty quick. So if you're married to one of these and you're doing the Christian, you know, I'm married, I'm not going to divorce her, you know, unless it's a biblically approved reason, you're going to have a really rough dotage. Like it's going to be bad. I'm sorry. And this is why we say don't stick your dick in crazy. It will never get better than it is right now.
Well, before that point, she's crazier in her 20s and 30s. And you're going to come up with ways to cope and try and keep away from crazy time and whatnot. So you're going to basically accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes on, you're going to give more and more and repress more of yourself. And by the time you're in your 60s or 70s, holy shit, she is running every damn thing. So it gets progressively worse over the years. Oh yeah, you haven't reached the full-blown hell stage in her 80s yet, but it does get progressively worse.
Oh yeah. It has
So
to.
you're saying there's, despite the hell I went through, it could be a blessing in disguise. That
Could is
that she left.
I was going to say, Nick, you're being really generous here with that word "could" in there.
Yeah.
Nick, you know, because you and I have talked about it. When I got out of my first marriage, my brain was so scrambled.
No.
I didn't know reality. It took me about 18 months to 24 months to kind of figure out, oh yeah, I mean, I'm not nuts. Reality is what I think it is. It took that long to get back to normal because I was so messed up. And you kind of said the same thing. It takes time because living with a cluster B person takes a toll on you. You don't know which direction is up. You don't know how to deal with anything. I was trying to diffuse this situation, and yet it blew up in my face. And she criticizes me for what she complimented me on before. And none of this makes sense. And am I going nuts? Can you relate, Nick?
Yeah. You can't make sense of crazy. It'll drive you crazy. Trying to. You will lose the sense of yourself trying to fix this crazy.
Well, but this I think is a key point that I want people to understand. There not only is there no fixing this, there's no medical intervention for this. Okay. There is, you know, you can't fix it by just being a nicer person, you can't just fix it by being a better beta. And there's a reason why we turn around and you know say things, you know, like feminism are like cluster B, because they are trying to get you to accept that the full spectrum of female behavior up to and including BPD and histrionic and all of it is acceptable. Well, that's just how women are. No, actually. Elena is not afflicted with any of these, thank God. And frankly, even my prior ex was not afflicted with any of these. She did not have BPD or histrionic or narcissistic and she was a freaking extrovert. You know, definitely not antisocial in any metric. He was just high body count, wanted to move on to the next one. You know, like that's and that's a key point here. Not every woman is going to meet the diagnostic criteria for these. There is one. It's a list of behaviors, and they have to meet a certain amount of them. They have to do it over time. These are not simple diagnostics. I've looked into them, and you really do have to sit here and go, well, okay, this trait is shared across all of them, so it's not specific to which one you are. And that's why I said for most guys, you don't really need to know what the specific diagnostic is. Just you have too many cluster B traits, because there is something known as subclinical. And all that means is that it does not reach the diagnostic threshold to declare somebody one of these things. Doesn't mean they don't have the traits. They're just not a clinical case. Okay.
In my recovery period, coming out of the first marriage, one of the books I read is Stop Walking on Eggshells. I don't remember who wrote it. It's a good book. Not Christian, but it has good, useful advice, because the term walking on eggshells is the experience of people in a relationship with a cluster B person, specifically BPD, but it would apply to all of these. You're always walking on eggshells because you don't know what's going to set that person off.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't have to even be, any of these four. You can just have somebody that just is so disagreeable and wants their own way that they'll raise a fit no matter what.
Well,
for instance, stop walking across the floor so hard. The whole house is shaking.
That sounds like me.
Oh. So you're criticizing the way I walk. Okay. I better walk around. I better tiptoe.
Well, Nick,
I mean, just any fucking thing will set them off.
and Nick, you're getting at a point here on this subclinical stuff. I said earlier in the show, I want to talk about there's some larger social implications here. We worship cluster B. We worship actors, YouTubers, politicians. All of these people are two things. All of these things attract cluster B people for various reasons. Okay. But also, when we worship that, so those professions attract cluster B, and then we worship them, which then confirms to the rest of the population that not only is cluster B normal, or not only is cluster B okay and acceptable, it's normal. And that everyone should behave like this. Okay. So, Nick, I mean, you're hitting on a point that I want to get to later on. So I guess we'll just, okay. I want to go through this heritability stuff. These are ranges. Again, we don't have a diagnostic genetic test for this. But some of the best data out there is a study done in 2012 in Norway on Norwegian twins. And the heritability
wasn't
is
mustache man people.
No.
Norway.
Okay.
Nordic folks. And here's an interesting thing. All of these heritabilities are in a relatively tight band. Okay. The average between all of them is about 66%. So if you have in your family somebody who is diagnosed with cluster B anything, there's a 2/3 chance that one of your children will also have cluster B of some form or another. Okay. Just something to think on. So cluster B runs in families. You can increase your chances by getting together with somebody else with cluster B. So if you're, let's say you're a man and you're a narcissist and you get together with a histrionic because the sex is fantastic, well, the chances of you, producing a cluster B offspring because the sex is fantastic are actually pretty high. That's not, it's not included in this. So here's borderline. They went to Sweden for that one. With familial risk. So the familiar risk is strongly related. There's a strong. So this is a ham-fisted way of saying this. Familiar risk strongly decreasing as genetic relatedness decreases, which basically just means the further away you get from the carrier of the gene, the less likely you are to get it.
So the solution to the pollution is dilution.
Correct. From a purely genetic standpoint, one of the worst things that can happen is two cluster Bs getting together and popping out kids. And there is actually literature written on this. I don't have it up for this show because I was just like, well, I'm not trying to make that argument, but you can go find it. It's out there. A particularly bad combination for whatever reason is an NPD with BPD. Apparently this is and it has to do with how the two interact with each other. It can how did they describe it? When the couple runs out of drama inside their relationship, they will start exporting drama. We call it, this isn't the term they used, but I'm trying to use a term that normies would connect with. Because there are certain pairings here that are worse for each other than others. ASPDs tend to, because they're so antisocial, I'm not going to say it's impossible, because some sociopaths are actually highly charismatic, but there's a bit of a lower incidence there. Borderline and narcissist, though, because they rely on this mutual tornado of drama, the narcissist needs what the BPD can offer, and the BPD needs what the narcissist has to offer. And if there's a decrease in drama inside the relationship, they will start seeking out friends and family to cause drama with. I have watched this happen. I watched as a kid growing up. Okay. So just so you know, not only is this in the literature, I've seen it as well. And now there are some points here, right? High heritability does not mean that it's guaranteed. Remember, I said it's about a 66% chance that you'll get the mutation. Okay. It's not guaranteed, although, as the studies suggest, familial risk strongly decreasing as genetic relatedness decreases. Okay. And same with ASPD. And histrionic. And it tends to run in families. And the other thing is that Jordan Peterson talked about this very frequently. You need some sort of environmental trigger. Something that happens, this is typically within the first 6 to 8 years of a child's life. Something has to happen that causes this thing.
Abandonment.
It. Yes.
This is like probably the most common thing. It happens to like 50% of the families.
Yes. And this is part of what, again, I will get into what the diagnosis rate is, and Steve has already put an important qualification on that, and why I think I think the diagnostic rates are too low. But when the mom kicks the dad out at 5, 6, 7 years old, and a cluster B runs in the family, the chances of triggering the cluster B are extremely high. And so, sorry, Nick. I'm sorry. I hate to say that.
Can I point out something else about this heritability? Children exhibit similar behavior as their parents because they grew up in this environment. They grew up in the crazy environment. We all, cluster B aside, we all witnessed the marriage between our parents. When you hit 18, 20, you think that is normal. Not consciously, but a lot of people try and recreate the environment, the relationship that they grew up in, not knowing that, hey, this is dysfunctional. They create the problems. So is it nature or nurture? Yeah, it is.
Well,
and so,
yes.
For example, my two daughters are adopted. I was out of there. I was booted when they were, 6, 8 years old. Dude, did the crazy stop once I left? What do you think?
No.
I have no information. Zero information. But do you think the crazy stopped?
No.
So they grew up in crazy, even though they're not genetically, theoretically, predisposed, or at least there's not a direct genetic linkage to my ex-wife. They still grew up in that environment. How's that going to impact them? Not good.
Yeah. There's an interesting note here. And if you remember my prompt was not asking about any specific condition. Gene environment interplay plays a major role, especially in BPD. And BPD being more female prevalent. Y'all have heard the phrase daddy issues. There it is in the psychological texts. Okay. In the studies, in the data. When mom kicks out the dad, the daughters suffer the most. It's not a happy thing to say. We are doing this to ourselves. We are choosing to put children in the environments where they are most likely to be triggered into this. And I think one of the things that's going on here is remember, your brain, as we grow and learn, is wiring new connections. Okay. The genetics may make certain connections easier to make and hardwire into our brains. And I think that's what's going on here, because, what we're talking about, dad getting kicked out of the house is a very emotionally traumatic event for children. Okay. It's the kind of thing that it's high stress, high adrenaline. It's going to write in your brain. And this genetic weakness might also almost be the best way to describe this. There's a weakness in your brain hardware that makes it easier for those lines to get written and you become this. I think that might be what we're getting at here.
If the father is kicked out by the mother, she will absolutely demonize him. Or tell stories of, he was abusive, he did this, he did that, he was immoral, he blah, blah, blah. Just trash the man. To the children, absolutely. So if the child even puts up any kind of defense, or even says, I love my father, the child is going to is going to receive a torrent of negative information. So the child has to, just to cope, just to get along and stop the crazy, just agree. The dad, oh yes, he was a terrible person. Uh-huh. You were right
Absolutely.
to do that.
Yes.
Just to appease some other, just to get along. Make it stop. Don't yell at me. Yes, daddy was a bad man.
Absolutely. I mean, if grown men will do that, men who are supposed to be hardened against life, how is a young child, a young daughter supposed to survive that without being permanently altered by it? I don't
Well,
see that.
there's effects, except you pray the grace of God would help them get through the other end not as scathed. I mean,
The
that's
best,
all. What can you do?
you can't do anything, Nick. You
Yeah.
can hope
Yeah.
that as they get older, they will recognize what was going on, and someone, God will bring someone into their life to help them make sense of their childhood, and maybe to reach out and talk to them, Father, to determine themselves what is true and what is not. But let's be honest, this is not, it's not a common thing. Most people do not do that. Not a high probability of it happening.
Well, that makes what we do to children in the divorce court, and we've talked about this at length before. This is just another way of describing how we are torturing, and I mean that in both the legal sense, the legal definition of torture is what we are doing to our children. When we do this, by giving women the ability to kick out a man, the father, for any reason she determines, for the purpose of kicking him out, we are torturing children. No different than the mutilation that goes on in Africa.
Hey, Plutarch, surely the courts can identify the crazy woman and not give her custody, right?
No, because the psychiatrist won't hand out the diagnostic, and the diagnostic is not considered a legal defense or a legal argument for why she should not have the kids. I mean, you guys have all seen how difficult it is to get the courts to agree to not hand the children over to a druggy mom. He literally has to show up drugged out of her mind in court to get
You
that.
missed the biggest factor. The more emotional the story, the more people go along with it to appease the highly emotional person. So, cluster B people are just phenomenally good actors and great victims. And, we have to help this victim. So, most of the time, the cluster B person will absolutely win in court. The borderline woman will absolutely, the average women get custody like 90% of the time. The borderline woman who wants custody, it's going to be virtually 100%. I think. I mean, I have no facts on this, but it's my belief.
It's the drama she's creating out inside and outside the relationship to try to get some semblance of what she wants in life, and she'll never really, he or she, but it just assumes that she never really get it and make everybody around them miserable.
Well, this goes back to, again, what I said. Our worship of cluster B has done uncalculable damage to our society. And this is another vector of it. We place the BPD actress in the court above all others. the most likely person to do severe damage to their children is one of these people. And the courts do not consider a diagnosis of BPD to be a reason to pull the children away. It should be the first reason. It should be written into law that if you are diagnosed with the trouble is then the diagnosis come fast and thick against any group. It's like
it doesn't even matter, Plutarch, because the cluster B person will make so many accusations against the man that they'll be all focused on evaluating the man. And once people are focused in a direction, they will never look.
True.
Where,
damn.
Let me say it this way: the victim often becomes a predator, or a victim does become the predator, and through their victimhood, they can be a covert predator. And there is no chance that an accused man can flip the script back and, hey, look at this. The crazy's actually over there. No, you cannot do that.
Now, first sign, should have figured it out, was they show their cards sometimes beforehand. It's always there, especially in the courts. What he's done with you. But the love bombing, guys.
Love bombing is highly associated with borderlines. Histrionics will do it, but it's not quite there. Well, yeah, they will do it too. Again, remember, there's a lot of overlap in all this. That's why I said at the beginning, honestly, we need to not concern ourselves with the individual diagnostics. That's a red herring, and just go, you're a cluster B, you're cluster bitch. There we go. And just kind of leave it at that. It's like, you're cluster B. I want nothing more to do with you. Goodbye. Okay. So Steve, you brought up a point earlier about the diagnostic rates. I also asked Grok, these are the diagnostic rates for these various things. And as they point out, so the overall cluster B personality in Western countries is about 5.5%, where globally it's closer to 2.8. I think this is very telling of society and culture. Goes again to what I was saying, we worship cluster B, so we have more of it. Globally, it's about 2.8. Now, this is interesting, Steve. Antisocial, so your sociopaths and your psychopaths come in the highest at 3%. Why? What?
It's probably easiest to recognize, and it's male, so there's also a current psychological bias against maleness in general.
Nick, well, yes, that's true, but here's the other thing. Of all of them, calling somebody a sociopath is the least socially stigmatized thing you can call somebody. There's very little social stigma. If somebody comes back with a diagnostic of, yeah, I'm a sociopath, I'm antisocial, people will go, oh, wow, okay. Whereas I think what this shows more than anything else is what Steve, you were saying Hannah Spears was talking about. There's the least reluctance to diagnose antisocial. And there's the most reluctance to diagnose histrionic. Could you imagine diagnosing a woman as histrionic?
I don't know if I'd say that. Histrionic is just not. We don't give a shit.
Well,
so it's kind of forgotten about. Borderline, I'd say there's a big reluctance there. Histrionic, okay. Nobody cares. Because they don't know about it.
Well, if there's a reason we don't care about it, it's this. Inappropriate seduction. We men like it for a little while. Although my guess
seems like every woman with social media falls under that category.
Right. Yes, exactly, Nick.
Just
It's
saying.
like,
But it's not obviously the clinical,
right. Well,
criteria. But
I think that's true of all of these. Is there's no for a lot of these, there's, and it goes back to what we were talking about a moment ago. We have so worshipped this stuff that there are going to be people out there who are exhibiting some of the symptoms of these diseases who do not actually have the diseases. Okay. Just because that is perceived as the culturally and socially acceptable thing to do.
Well, or they're going through a phase. And I'm just going to say that, people can go a little bit nuts and get off the rocker for a while, a year or two, hit a rocky period and exhibit some of these things. And they will exhibit some of the behaviors. I'm sure I have exhibited some of these behaviors at various times in my life. Okay, well, that doesn't mean I'm one of them. Well,
correct.
Maybe I am. I don't know. I've not been. Okay, could I be one of these? Well, let's see. My life hasn't fallen apart, and I don't go see a therapist or a psychologist. So generally, to get diagnosed, you have to have some major crisis and then go for therapy with a psychologist or someone who is credentialed to give this diagnosis. And how many people meet that criteria?
Well, yeah, so what Steve is describing here is called selection bias. The diagnostic rates are based on those who select to go into therapy, or they're forced by law to. The court says you got to go get some. Those are the court angle is very rare, and the number of people who go to therapy and get a diagnosis, they're going to be the people whose lives are falling apart the worst. So these diagnostic rates do, and I did not ask Grok about this. We could, like we did a couple episodes before. It's like, okay, well, what is the selection bias on this? Because, and the reason that I say that is because, so Peter Wright put out this tweet, and he's talking about these, different types of women as well. He's responding to Paul Elam. And they are talking about game and PUA techniques, and that's there's some good stuff in here as well. That we should definitely pay attention to. Narcissistic women, sexually attracted to the trophy partner, a fastidiously groomed, financially resourced man who learns to signal success and provide a steady drip feed of flattery and ego validation for her self-enhancement. Yeah, okay. We know who those couples are. You see them online. Borderline are highly sexually reactive to dread game. Rollo will tell you stories about this, and he has publicly. Push-pull tactics, you're gonna get borderlines with these. Basically anything that it triggers abandonment fears. Yeah, okay, that fits right in with the diagnostic. Histrionic, thrive on attention, drama, chase, validation. The skilled players, they deliver through manufactured flirtation, excitement, emotional roller coasters. A lot of that is pickup game. So, but there's a key point here at the end. Peter Wright had Grok look at both clinical and elevated subclinical scores. And Grok estimated then that 1.3 billion women worldwide have these elevated traits in at least one of the three, which means that about 30% of all women in the world have some sort of elevated subclinical version of this. So we have the self-selection problem. Then we have the problem of those that self-select, do they actually meet the diagnostic criteria or not, or are they subclinical? Okay. And then you get to this idea of, well, there is such a thing as elevated subclinical, where they don't technically qualify for the diagnostic, but they're just highly sexually reactive to dread game, and that's just who they are. Okay.
Oh, and then there's the bias of the psychologists and psychiatrists to not want to diagnose someone because there is no cure. So they're reluctant to diagnose it. And they'll do anything to avoid that. So let's call this the false, what would it be? A false negative.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about the diagnosis is that you did present that they offer ADHD and what was the other one? Bipolar. Both of those theoretically have chemical interventions. Bipolar is lithium, and ADHD is, well, speed. But the thing is, if you drug women up on antidepressants and speed, you might actually be able to paper over some of this. Okay. You might be able, because, I was talking to my dad about this recently. He's actually studied antidepressants at length for some reason. And what he said is it just kind of makes you, for a lot of people, just kind of makes them, it flattens them out. They're not really emotionally anything. And that would work. I can see how it works. Like if you just emotionally flatten somebody out, they're not going to have extremes one way or the other. So you're not going to get this, you're not going you're not going to get emotional intensity that the borderline wants, right? If you're narcissistic, you're not going to get the ego, you're not going to care about the ego validation anymore. You might still want it, but it won't hit you. And so, same for all of the histrionic stuff. Like, I can see how they get there, and I guess that's controlling it therapeutically. Like, is just load them up on drugs. But the other thing is that if you take antidepressants, I forget what the number is. It's some number of months, and it isn't many. It permanently rewires your brain. Like, you can't undo it. And if you do, it takes. There was one story my dad was telling us. This young lady was on antidepressants when she was a teen. It took her like 20 years. And even then, she's still kind of flat. She still feels flat sometimes. SSRIs are powerful things, and we are throwing them at our women like they're candy.
What percentage of women over 40 are on antidepressants?
Well, let me look that up. During 2015 to 2018, 23% of women in their 40s and 50s were taking SSRIs.
23%, 1 in 4.
Hey, look at that. One of the cool things about science is we get to do this thing where we look at different numbers, and when they correlate, we go, well, it's correlation, not a causation. But the fact that the correlation exists suggests that there might be something to this. About a quarter of the world's women exhibit elevated subclinical cluster B scores. And about 1/3 of the world's women in 40s and 50s are on SSRIs, very likely to flatten themselves out.
Well, I'll say something here from my own personal experience. I would say that in my teens, I had one parent that I was living with for a while. Let's just say she's mellowed out a bit since then. But parents went through a divorce. Oh, he's dealing with some depression issues. Oh, he can't concentrate. Oh, he's bored. Oh, he's this, that, and other. I got problems. Okay. Well, no shit, right? What kid is not gonna have trying to figure out crap? A, he's a teenager. He's going through puberty. B, you know, and C, guess what? Pops got kicked out. Oh, so
I'll tell
first,
you, Nick.
fir-
Go ahead.
so first, we need to put him on Adderall. Then, he's also depressed, so we'll try. Now, this was effed up. It was like what, Paxil? They tried to put me on that. And I did it for like a month or so. I was like, fuck this shit. I said, Dad, I don't feel like myself. This is fucked up. I don't want this shit. And he said, yeah, then don't fucking take it. And he said, work through your problems in your own way. Like you're gonna get through it. Like it, he thought it was stupid bullshit too. And I was like, you know what? Now, after these studies come out, what these drugs do to your brain over a long period of time, I'm like, I'm really grateful I had a dad who was still invested in my life and said, fuck it, son, just don't take it. And they can't make you take it. And I got your back.
This is the importance of having a father around. Right here, right here. One less soul destroyed for having a father around.
It also, there's another thing to point out here. This is a difference between boys and girls. Boys question. Girls pretty much go along.
Yeah. Which is
okay. Boys overtly rebel against this. Girls covertly rebel through private behaviors, cutting, promiscuity are probably the two main ones. And then, once they're out of the house, what, piercings and tattoos? Could that be have anything to do with this? Could that be a behavior? Cutting, tattoos, and piercings.
I was just reading a Paul Benjamin tweet yesterday on the topic of tattoos and piercings. And look, guys, we in the Red Pill know exactly what tattoos and piercing means, particularly on a woman. On men, they mean different things. Okay. But on women, they are a universal signal of deep emotional and psychological trauma. Like, yeah, they might be great in the sack, but that's about what they're good for. It's about the extent of it. Large numbers of tattoos on a woman, you got issues that you don't need in your life. I would even say small numbers of small tattoos. A woman willing to mark themselves up, to intentionally uglify themselves. She's telling you something. You're just not listening. And the reason I say that is...
Let's say the girl grows up in purity culture, though. And, tattoos are just taboo, but piercings, maybe not so much. And so they'll gravitate to the piercings. And so they'll have a lot of piercings and perhaps hidden piercings when the parents don't know about when they get older.
Yes.
Covert behavior.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, guys, tattoos and piercings for recreational use only. It's that simple. A woman's...
Well, it's like playing with a hand grenade then.
Yeah. Yeah. A live one. Guys, even with small tattoos, a woman's primary value to the relationship, to, you know, the way we value women is on their feminine beauty. If she is intentionally marking that up via piercings, tattoos, etc., then she is telling you that for some reason she views that feminine beauty as a bad thing. I'm just going to use the general term bad thing because they all have different explanations for why they do it, and all that. And all of them I've asked have told me, you know, they tell you what you want to hear about them. Oh, well, I got this tattoo because it means something to me, you know, it means something. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, no, I believe you on that. I just don't think you're telling me why you actually did it. But even on small ones, I would say, you know, it's like, you know, and I know that there's going to be some woman, but I got a tattoo of my, you know, my child who died in childbirth's feet. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it, but that's trauma. You're telling me that there's trauma there. Okay. I'm not saying that it's all bad, although a woman who's lost a child is pretty fucked up for the rest of her life. So, you know, it's just like, guys, be aware of that. It is. Go ahead.
Hey, you just gave me an idea.
Uh-oh.
Maybe I should get a tattoo of a boot print on my ass to commemorate the trauma of me being kicked out of my children's lives.
Are you saying you're a woman there, Steve?
Well, maybe I'm just trying to get in touch with my feminine side.
Oh, okay.
Gotta have butterfly wings on either side of each side of the boot.
Oh my God. You guys are being extra tonight. Okay. So, you know, we've gone through this. We've gone through a lot of data. You know, I'm going to put this away for now. What can we do about this? I mean, as I said, if you're a plate spinning, unattached red pill man, it's pretty easy. And frankly, most of you guys already know the answer. Kick her to the curb and replace her. She, you know, yeah, I get it. The sex is good, great, you know, mind bending, whatever. Long term, it ain't worth it. Kick her out. But, you know, as I was thinking about this, I realized that is the answer to cluster B in all cases. I had a fascinating conversation with one of my siblings, where I said something to the effect of the most appropriate thing there. The only way, actually, this is what I said. The only way for a cluster B person, particularly, this was in a Christian context. That's my whole family. To find salvation is to remove themselves from society. You could say go monk. And the reason I say that is because society is where they find their temptations. The public eye, you know, the narcissist. Why are so many narcissists drawn to acting and YouTube and politics? Well, because that's where they can get the attention they seek. And Nick, I don't know about you, but I hold the belief that people who intentionally seek out temptation are sinning. Just, I don't know. You can tell me I'm wrong, but. And so, or go ahead.
There's this thing in the Catholic world they advise us to avoid the near occasion of sin. I think that's what you're saying. You're going
Yes.
and you're flirting with the edge of sin. Why the hell are you doing that? No, you don't have. That's just a Catholic expression. I'm sure it's good advice for Protestants too.
Yeah, well, just if you know you're tempted, best to stay away from that thing that you're particularly tempted with.
Okay,
That's
that's
wisdom.
yeah, that's wisdom. Yeah, that's a good way to say it, Nick.
It's called prudence.
Prudence.
Yeah.
That's another good word. Yeah. Okay. So what this means then is not only do not only do they need to remove themselves, we as a society would be doing our fellow brothers in Christ a favor by removing the temptation from them, by removing the attention they seek. You know, we've talked a lot about Mark Driscoll a lot, and I happen to have been connected to people who are actually involved in that. And one of the things that pops out of it is the guy is a grandiose malignant narcissist, like flaming narcissist. And he just cannot stop using the church to elevate himself. He literally cannot stop doing it because he's drawn to it. And it is, it goes back to, then there was another thought that I had. But if narcissism is genetic, that means that God made these people broken on purpose. And this is where it got kind of dark for me, was it's like, okay, I think it's Ecclesiastes, it could be Ezekiel, but there's a verse that goes, who can make straight what God hath made crooked? Okay.
Except God himself.
Except God himself. Correct. So this is how I got to this idea that the only path to salvation for the cluster B is to remove themselves from society, is because it is not within our human power. And you know, we were talking about, you know, the polygenetic heredity problems, and we don't know what the gene is, and we may never know, because God made them crooked. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I think God made them crooked on purpose, not to save them, but to teach other people what this looks like. To teach other people lessons. They are here as a lesson. They can say they can be saved. I'm not saying that, but that's God's problem, not our problem. And we are not required to try to fix them because God made them that way.
Okay. So now we are delving into the spiritual sense, the spiritual arena. What virtue are they missing? And what can an outside person observe in a missing virtue of these, which, if they had to practice, might actually lead to their salvation? What virtue?
Humility.
Bingo.
Yes, this is why I also think it's not merely a genetic problem. Yes, they're born under the fall, and it's the consequences of the fall, not God himself, and created them this way. I don't want to attribute evil to God.
Oh, okay. But you see my point, right? It's they are allowed to exist. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can identify them. This person never, ever admits wrongdoing, that they failed, that they made a mistake. They don't apologize. They project the reason they did that on some outside cause. They lack total humility. They never exhibit that.
Spiritual problem. That's a spiritual problem as well.
Of course it is.
Hence why, you know, Dr. David Edgerton, we've had him on. He also suggests that there could be demonic activity here.
Well, we don't. You know, some guys have you know, on the borderlines in histrionics, you know, they describe them as demons in bed. I think there's a connection there. Like, guys describe these women as losing their shit, not being in total control of their faculties. Well, that sounds like a lot like what they used to call demonic possession back in the old days to me.
There's another statistic out there that we can draw on. What percentage of women in the U.S. have had an abortion?
1 in 3, I think. It's either
What?
1 in 2 or 1 in 4.
30%
Yeah.
in the ancient world.
Oh.
In the ancient world, killing a child. Was there a god or something
Moloch
like that?
and other ones, yeah. Yeah, Moloch is
Oh,
one. There's other ones too. Yeah.
Moloch, sacrificing a child to Moloch. Was Moloch is Moloch a demon?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you sacrifice a child through an abortion, a sacrifice to Moloch, that's okay. It could have a spiritual element. Now, in addition, you are if a woman does that, she is subverting one of her, if not the highest reason for her existence, to give birth. She is subverting that. Men go to war, come back with PTSD and have all kinds of problems, psychological problems. Does it stand to reason that a woman, from just a psychological standpoint, has an abortion? She may feel internal guilt, not know how to deal with that, displace it on others, not be able to practice any humility or admit she did wrong. And there could also be a demonic element to this. Could this have anything to do with anything?
I would say it's a false equivalence. I know you're given like I don't. I just want to say coming back with PTSD and things beyond your control and struggling to deal with that is not necessarily what you would call a
That's a
demonic
good point.
activity.
I'm not making them equivalent.
No,
I'm
I
just
know you're
saying
not.
shit
I know you're
happens because of behavior. Or
Right,
because of
and
experience, I should say, not behavior.
what's
Experience
different,
causes outcome.
they're both psychological issues, perhaps a deeper spiritual issue as well, but one's an internal struggle to deal with stuff outside your control and the nastiness of life, which is a normal aspect of men's experience throughout history. The other one is, and I'm not saying demons can't be involved in warfare. Okay, I get it. But the other one, killing your child, is especially demonic. You're sacrificing your child for yourself, for your own well-being, economically, potential partners in the future, your lifestyle, etc., etc., etc. You're saying my life is more important than this child, and this child is a hindrance, or perhaps even it could be even crazier. It's a celebration of your feminist freedom to slaughter
Ugh.
children. This is demonic. And the fact that so many women do this, I'm you're if there's opening yourself up to demons or demon influence, I think abortion's way up there.
So I asked Grok, came back pretty quickly with a pretty short answer. Approximately 1 in 4 women of U.S. women are expected to have at least one abortion by the age of 45. That's based on NIH, National Institute of Health.gov. That was an estimate based on abortion rates around 2020. So I could even pull up the source there. You got, yep. And here you go, right here. There's the document. This isn't Grok just making stuff up. In 2014, there you go, 24%. Result, they estimate 24.7%. Okay.
That doesn't include the overnight pill, whatever the day after.
No. This is going to a clinic and having the child removed and killed.
The difference between 1/3 and 1/4 is not material.
Correct. Well, but what I find interesting is that the incident is incredibly high with the incidents. We were talking about it was the 23. It was the 23% of SSRIs. Fascinating.
Yeah.
This 25% number seems to come up a lot when we're talking about women and the problems they face. About 25% exhibit at least subclinical cluster B, 25% are on SSRIs to flatten it out, 25% have had abortions. Guys, there's something here. We don't have good enough data to say what, but there is something here.
That doesn't mean all these are the same 25%.
No, it doesn't. But there's something here.
And how many come from broken homes?
More than 25%.
Yeah. Right. And I think one of the things that we can do as a society is to remove the narcissist will not willingly remove themselves from their drug. And it is a drug to them. It's more addictive than Fent. Okay, I'm not going to use the full term on YouTube than the Fenty. Okay, it's way more addictive than that. And the reason why is not necessarily because of the physical addiction, but because society has not just accepted it, but has glorified it. They don't even see what they're doing as a problem. They see it as the correct thing to do. So they have no defense against it. Like if you catch a Fent user on a sober moment, they'll admit that they've fucked it up, that they fucked their lives up with it. In fact, I read an article about an ex porn star who got on Fent, and like she's like missing a finger because her dealer took it from her. I mean, she's ugly. And it was I forget, it was somebody was doing an interview, and she was talking about how the drug had destroyed her life. She knew it destroyed her life. Okay. The cluster Bs of the world have no idea that their lives are being destroyed by this, because they are getting the drug pumped into them by the whole world. And the whole world is telling them, "Oh, you're so great for doing this, and you're so awesome." And I mean, they're giving them everything.
Hey, Nick.
Yeah.
Since we've established that a quarter of the women have had abortions, a quarter of the women have either cluster B or subclinical cluster B characteristics. A quarter of women over 40 are on SSRIs. How is the church addressing these issues?
Well, except in a few cases, like we had Dr. David Edgington in here. He's a pastor, counselor. Very few men are addressing, very few, very few churches will address these things, period, especially where it's involved with the women. They might blame the man and call him a narcissist, though, and he needs to get help for that.
And there's churches who will go after the abortion side of it.
True, and they should.
Okay, they'll go after abortion in general.
Yes.
But they'll never actually, from the pulpit, talk about abortion of the individual women to minister to them, saying, "Hey, this is a traumatic event. You need some help to deal with this. Because if you don't deal with this and you just repress it and push the guilty feelings off on the world or probably your spouse, it will destroy your life." They are not addressing individual women. And you know what? In the church, the religious women are really no different than secular women. If a quarter of all women have had abortions, somewhere between 10 and 25% of the women sitting in the pews every Sunday have had an abortion.
Correct.
And they need to be helped because it needs to be addressed, needs to be
Don't you
talked
know?
about.
Don't you know, Steve? It's the evil patriarchy and the and old school religion that's the problem. Just we need to hammer more on racism and sexism and all this other bullcrap. But hey, you know,
Oh, yes, point the finger elsewhere so they don't have to feel guilty or feel the shame.
but
Doesn't lessen the burden they're carrying inside because they can't
you
talk
have
to anybody about it.
you have people who've literally sacrificed their own children to Moloch, and all you can do is just say, "Yep, abortion's wrong. And God's grace covers your sins." Okay, that's very superficial. And you act like these women are, in fact, you might not even know who these women are. They probably won't say it. But if they do they really have they ever really dealt with it? Or is it just like, "Oh, this is my badge of honor because Christ covers my sins, and yeah, I won't do it again, but oh, now I can tell everybody my story and get attention."
Well, there are a few women who take that path. Most of them don't.
You know, Steve, while Nick was right about your PTSD comment, there is an analogy that we can make with it. We all agree
Okay.
that having an abortion is a traumatic event for a woman.
Yes.
Okay. When men were coming home from World War II with what they called at the time shell shock, they now call it PTSD, or when soldiers were coming home from Iraq too with and Afghanistan with PTSD. In both cases, you're talking about, I think in the case of World War II, less than 2 million men in a country of 148 million, 145 million, somewhere in there.
I mean, 2 million men
2 million men.
served.
Yes, that served. Yeah, I don't think that many came home with PTSD, but we don't have good data on this. So
Okay.
what I'm saying is, in the worst possible case, you assume all of them have some sort of PTSD from the war. It's about 2 million men. You talk about Afghanistan. Afghanistan was actually bigger in terms of the number of men in the military who cycled through. We lost fewer, but there were more men who cycled through. It's closer to 5 million. But in that case, society was closer to 300 million, about 300 million people here. It still cost us an enormous amount of time, social and familial suffering, and uncountable billions of dollars to deal with those groups of men when they came home from war. And these groups of men represent a percent, 1.5%, 2% of the population. We're talking about a quarter of the population with this.
So that was an acknowledged thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They came back with PTSD. And you're talking about the acknowledged cost.
Correct.
You're kind of drawing a parallel to the unacknowledged amount of women dealing with this and the unacknowledged cost, which we have no idea what the magnitude is.
Based on how much we spend on our healthcare system, I would not be shocked to hear numbers north of $1 trillion.
Let me clarify one other thing to address this parallelism that I kind of alluded to. Not to make them equal, but we always assume that men come back with shell shock, PTSD, because of what they saw or what they experienced. A lot of them probably do. Yes. But there's also a factor, what they did. War is ugly. A lot of these are young men, 18, 19, 20 years old. A lot of them follow orders. They're full of passion. Things happen in war. We've all heard the horror stories, war crimes, shooting somebody. This shit happened. Yes, Americans did it in World War II. Yes, these atrocities happen in all wars. And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not disrespecting our veterans. But war is ugly. Men do things that they later regret, and it haunts them for the rest of their lives. And I still love those men, and I appreciate what they did. They were in a situation. Could have happened. They could have did something they regret. And I understand that. Just like these women are in a situation. They do something that they later regret.
Will they ever humble themselves? Will they ever express humility? I've come across a lot of these men that go through these things. They say, yeah, I regret this, and I'm not sure if it was right. And that's my struggle between me and God. And they'll tell you if you get them to a point, maybe not immediately, but over the years, they'll tell you. As an aside, probably not in front of a lot of people, but they may get to a point where they'll tell you, and there's a sense of when they get to that point, there's a sense of humility, reflectiveness, and I don't see that with much of the other half of the population.
That's what I was just going to ask. Are we seeing the same soberness out of women over their abortions? I don't see it either.
You know what you were describing there, Nick?
What's that?
What the Catholic Church does. The sacrament of confession. You have to go. You have to speak your sin. You have to lay your heart out and say, this is what I did. Okay, now I'm not expecting the Protestants to believe what I believe. But the Catholics believe you're not confessing to a man. The man is acting in the person of Christ. You're verbalizing your sin. It takes great courage and humility to do this. Once you speak it, you're acknowledging it to yourself and to someone else. That's therapeutic. And in the Catholic Church, the priest has the faculties to absolve you. But he also gives you a penance, a penalty. No, okay, you did wrong. You got to do this. The penalty doesn't ever reach the level to actually amend what you did. Basically, but if you stole $1 million, well, damn, you better give the $1 million back and then do 10 Our Fathers and, 5 Hail Marys, and then he absolves you. But if you don't do the penance, it doesn't work. But you know what? Whether you think this is spiritually valid or not, psychologically, It works. And without this, what do we try and do? Oh, we go to a therapist and talk to a therapist about all your troubles. And the therapist says, "Oh, yes, I understand, but you're okay just the way you are." It's trying to reach for this humility confession without getting it quite right.
Well, the thing they're missing is the priest withholds. So in your Catholic model, the priest withholds absolution if you do not complete the penance. The therapist just tries to come up with the right magical incantation to make you stop thinking you ever sinned to begin with.
Well, the priest doesn't actually withhold. He gives you absolution. But then it's up to God to,
Sure.
if you don't perform the penance after the absolution, then it doesn't count. So, he's not acting as your judge.
My point stands.
Yeah, sure it does. I just want to make sure that's clarified.
Okay.
He's not acting as your judge.
The therapist is not trying to work in your best interest. One of the things I ran across, and I did not think to save the tweet. Somebody pointed out that nearly everyone who gets into therapy, particularly not psychology, but everyone who gets into therapy is cluster B. It's not quite everyone. There's a few good apples in there.
What do you mean gets into therapy? Goes to therapy or becomes a therapist?
Becomes a therapist.
Okay.
Big distinction. Yeah.
Right. They were just making an assertion. I have not found any numbers on this, and what therapist would ever diagnose themselves as anything other than pure as the driven snow. But I was thinking about that, and I go, well, of course the narcissist would want to go to school to learn how to better manipulate people, and then be given a license to say that not only is their manipulations justified, but they're helping people with their manipulations. And as a benefit, they learn how to manipulate you to think you are not, that they are not also cluster B. And they have the legal authority to step in and offer their service. It's the legal authority, but also in some cases, they're legally bound to act, to use their license and credentials to make determinations and pronouncements over you as a person. I'm not saying that secular priesthood. Yeah. That's a frighteningly accurate description of what goes on there. I'm not saying that they are all bad apples. I'm not saying that. There are some serious, people out there. Most of them, I think, end up in research because they're actually that's where the incentives of the system would push them to go. And I'm not, and as I said, there is no data on this, but when you think about it, one of the when you think about what cluster B desires, particularly the narcissistic variant of it, they desire that adoration. Well, what is when you help somebody overcome something in therapy, what do they always, oh, thank you. I had no idea. Man, you were so helpful. This was so helpful. This was so great. Okay. So they get their adoration fix, but they now have a license to receive their drug fix. Okay. They are
licensed to judge you.
And yeah, and then we give them a license to pass judgment on others. So what does that do, particularly for the narcissist? Well, it makes them feel good about themselves because clearly they are better than you. Clearly. Okay. And in certain cases, in extreme cases, they have a legal obligation to step in. And so now they have legal authority over you in some cases. Think about that for a second.
Well, those are your mandatory custody evaluators.
Thank you for
bingo.
saying
How
that,
do I know
Nick. Yes,
about this? How do I know about this?
exactly. Right? They are legally required to step in and do this. Okay, and exercise their disorder. Think about what we've done to ourselves here. It is my belief that the world would be automatically better if, and I don't know how to do this, but other than to say to red pill men, the first thing you must do whenever you encounter cluster B, men or male or female, is remove it from your life.
Flee! Flee!
Flee, yes, flee. Run away. Yes, the sex may be fantastic, but it's not worth it.
Okay.
That was Steve's wisdom when I was encountering that crazy woman that kept coming into the bar and just was hitting guys. He's like, Nick, you're the only one who'll say, it's not right to beat the crap out of a guy and all the guys doing nothing, but you're made yourself a target now. And
Yep.
she's crazy, so get out. I said, yep, haven't
There,
been
I
back.
said there is no way you can win. All you can do is remove yourself from the situation. Avoid
did.
her
Haven't
at
been
all
back.
cost.
Haven't been back.
Well,
Now, okay, you're talking Plutarch. You're talking about relationships
Yeah.
because you identify a cluster B woman and get away. Okay, there are men with cluster B. We encounter them.
what do you do with them?
Okay, you're working. You
I'm working
identify
up to
your
this.
boss as a cluster B,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, worked there for a number of years, and it was erratic. This is while I was married to my cluster B wife. Both ends of my life were chaos. Just what the hell? Okay, I persevered because I had to. The pay was good. I needed the job. I stayed. Eventually, I got fired. I got a severance and I moved on. But it cost me. I should have I should have looked for a job sooner. I should have gotten out of there. I mean, this guy, he was brilliant. I learned a lot from him. I have great respect for the man. The people that went through that small firm, the brilliant people, highly qualified people, who it was a revolving door. Seriously. We had some of the best talent, some of the best people I've ever worked with. And most of them didn't last that long. You got to save yourself. The money is not worth it. You got to get out. And it is hell if you got a wife that's pressuring you for the lifestyle and the earnings and all that, and you're in a difficult situation, doubly difficult, because you got a cluster B at home and you're working for a cluster B. Oh man, talk about miserable existence.
Well, this goes back to the rule of the red pill. Don't stick your dick in crazy. Okay, don't stick your wallet in crazy either, guys. Okay, there's nothing there for you.
Save yourself.
Right. It is
So my
okay.
dad tells me.
It is okay to leave a job. It is okay to make less money to not work for a cluster B person.
Mhm.
And okay, there's one last group of relationships I want to get to, and this is a hard one. And I'm not even going to say that I have the full answer here. What do you do when it's your own family?
Suffer.
Well, you can, but only for a time. And the reason I say that is at some point, they are going to come to you as a source of drama. They're going to make you their hobby, as we used to say.
What do I know about that?
Yeah. And I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I think the answer is going to be a combination of there are going to be things where it's family, you have to deal with them. Okay, you have no choice. Some of it's legal. I've watched other families go through this, and I know it's coming for mine. But of course, you're going to have to deal with probates. You're going to have to deal with them.
Absolutely. The parent dies. Got to divide up the assets. There's a will. There's not a will. There's probate. There's division. You just got to deal with it. It's going to happen.
Right. So I think for family, the answer of just don't deal with it at all isn't going to fully cover what you need to do. I think the answer needs to be interact with them as little as necessary. Because here's the thing. The reason I brought up the genetics is I need people to understand something that I've only just I've dealt with this for decades, but I've only just come to realize it. Not only are these people broken, they have no idea that they're broken. Okay? And so they treat the world how they treat you how they treat everyone else. And I know that doesn't make sense, but let me explain here. When they cannot conceive of you doing anything other than they themselves would do. Okay? If they would use you to get ahead, then they assume that you will also do that to them. And so in their mind, what they're doing is justified because you would do it to them. Okay. This is the problem with genetic diseases. The person who's born with it, I mean, if we're talking physical disfigurement, yeah, you can look, but these people have no idea that normal people do not behave like they do. To them, everyone else is crazy. Or the normies are crazy. That's another way to say it. Okay. Steve, you were talking about your BPD wife. As far as she was concerned, you were the crazy one. And if you listen to
of course I was.
Well, and if you listen to how they argue in court and they paint you as the crazy one, that's why.
They did that to me too.
Exactly, Nick. Because they themselves view what we would consider the proper term is neurotypical. They are the crazy ones. And so and this, goes back to the society, celebrating the crazy, the cluster B. What that's done is convinced them. It's not just, not only are they genetically unable to see that they are different, they are being celebrated for being different. And so they think that the society itself is telling them that they are the normal ones and that the people who don't behave like them are the crazy ones.
Kind of, yes. But there's a part of them that learns the sins of the other person. Because I'm not perfect. I've made some mistakes, done some really stupid things.
We all
You
have.
reveal them and you demonize me, then the focus is on me and it's not on them. So they know, reveal the details of other people to deflect from themselves. And so
Steve,
it's easy to rationalize, oh, I see the flaws in that person. And then I can exaggerate them,
Steve,
and conjecture something great and make them the biggest demon in the world.
Yes, but I think that's a side effect. I don't think that's intentional.
Maybe.
Well, here's something pretty insidious that happened to me. I believe in, confessing your sins and who you sinned against, sincerely, personally, and specifically, right?
Sure.
So the fact that I was consistently confessing my sins and sincerely was
Will
used
be
against me was
yes.
You didn't do
weaponized
that to a
against.
woman, did you? Confess to a
I
No,
did that
woman?
to
Oh my
anyone.
God.
no,
You
Nick.
showed
No,
humility.
Steve,
That's
Steve.
weakness, Nick.
No, Steve. The
No,
problem
shit.
is most
So I
narcissists
was,
are men.
but
It,
I was said to be a narcissist, but yet she had all this information to try to destroy me with, which was
That's
exaggerated
what
or
I was
false or
referring
yeah.
to.
yes. Yes.
So I opened the book up to a crazy person while she was constructing her narrative to leave me. And I
And
had no
gentlemen,
idea.
gentlemen, be careful the men you confess your sins to.
Oh,
If I get an inkling that you are a cluster B person, male or female, I immediately go to a superficial relationship. You will never learn anything interesting about me.
Okay, let me say this. Never confess your sins to a woman.
yeah, I
Never.
disagree.
Do
I
not show
disagree.
your humility to a
I
woman
disagree.
because she will view it as
Eh,
weakness.
yeah, Nick, I have to go with Steve.
If
This is practical, not
if you
moral.
show humility to a good man, he will actually respect you more because
Yeah.
this is a man I can trust. He has humility. If you show weakness or humility to a narcissist, he will use it against you.
Correct.
And you have to admit, the Catholic Church has a pretty good thing where if you confess your sins, I mean, now these are major things, and show your humility to a priest, he is bound by the seal of confession not to use it against you or to tell anybody else. It's kind of like doctor patient privilege. In the attorney world, attorney client privilege. It's a good thing. Doesn't really exist anywhere that I know of other than those three areas: priest, doctor, attorney.
I would say that the church probably arrived at that after some pretty spectacular failures. It's like, no, actually, you don't get to use this against people. What are you thinking, you you retard? Um,
Oh, so
so
Steve, so guys, not only was I accused of being a narcissist, but bipolar because I would get justifiably angry at something that was done against me that was sin, and I didn't always react perfectly. So I came back later to confess my unrighteous anger.
well, okay. So Nick, there's two things I want to point out here. One of them gets to the difficulty of this is why we don't just sling around these diagnoses. Self-confidence is routinely misdiagnosed as narcissism by the less self-confident. It is not. They are not the same thing.
Mm.
That's just something that I've been dealing with my whole life. Is people keep telling me I'm a narcissist, and I go, well, but I don't do anything on the list except I very self-confidently state my claims, and you don't like the fact that I can back them up most of the time. The difference is the difference. Okay, here's the difference between self-confidence and narcissism. Somebody who's self-confident will admit when they're wrong. That's it. Okay. So, but women will leverage your self-confidence, and Nick, when it comes to matters of spirituality, you're pretty self-confident and deservedly so, I would think. And so when you're having these conversations with your wife and she's, accusing you of being a narcissist, and you're having these, but the Bible says this, and we're not supposed to do that, and this is evil, right? You're a
Including
quote
some of
unquote,
my own action.
yeah, well, yeah, but you are quote
Yeah.
unquote a narcissist because she
Oh.
needs you to be, not because you are. Okay.
Because you claim to be right all the time, and you usually are, and then all of a sudden you'll acknowledge your weakness. So here's a weak guy who then is full of himself later and is telling me what to do and what's right and wrong. How can I resolve these two things? He must be a narcissist.
Correct. That's
how they get armchair psychologist chair.
Maybe I'm just a normal human being that's trying to live Christian human being, man especially, I guess, not necessarily matters at this part, but striving to live righteously, and yet there's still the sin that is within me.
Right. But because we have glorified the cluster B, your willingness to show that weakness, that vulnerability, makes you a crazy person, because no cluster B would do such a thing. And therefore, because society has determined that cluster B is normative, it is correct, you are incorrect for doing so for some reason, and you're crazy.
Nick, when you were a younger man, did you have a harder time controlling your anger?
Absolutely. Yes.
Did it sometimes kind of overwhelm you, especially when faced with a crazy person, and that she reacts, everything escalates, and you go a little bit nuts?
Yeah.
Bingo. I did the same thing. It was a complete escalation, and it was crazy. And I would get angry, and I could not. I was a younger man. I didn't know how to deal with that because the situation was just so absurd. Over the years, I've matured and I've given a lot of thought to it. Do I get angry now? Not usually, because I know how to head it off. I have wisdom. Some of that comes with mellowing with age, but young men are hot-headed and they get angry.
Yep.
I mean, it's just part of the human condition. It doesn't mean they're dangerous or narcissistic or abusive. It's just young men. Okay, men have to learn, and from a young age, we have to learn to control our power, our physicality with other men, and our anger. It's really important for a man to learn to control his emotions. But yet, men still get angry, especially at injustice and things like that. There is righteous anger. So just because a man is angry does not mean he's dangerous. Oh, a lot of times it could be righteous anger.
Yeah, be angry and do not sin. Where were we, guys? I might have sidetracked us.
No, you're good. No, I was just thinking through all this. What do you do with family? What do you do with general society? And the answer kind of turns into you have to push them away, and it is to their spiritual benefit that you do so. Because the less temptation there is in their life, if you can remove temptation from a brother, I would say that is a moral and spiritual good. With family, it does get complicated, but even there, you should remove yourself as much as possible. And here's the thing: you might tell yourself that because this person is diagnosed with something, that you will be able to resist their manipulations. Because remember, not all interactions are antagonistic. In fact, most interactions with cluster B are not going to be antagonistic. The cluster B is going to be attempting to manipulate you to get something from you. I brought up probate. There's a reason why the cluster Bs, take over the probate process, because now there's a direct conflict over who gets what, right? So why is it always the cluster B one who wants to cozy up to the surviving parent? Why is it always the cluster B personality that ends up getting the parent to rewrite the will?
That was really interesting. I had my late grandmother. Let's just say there were some issues about accusations of ex-wife trying to grab the inheritance and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe. I didn't believe. My dad was talking to me, and I always told my grandmother, I said, it's, you need to do what is right in your own eyes. Don't distance your own children just because you're feeling a certain way. Like, I'm just your grandson. You need to do what is right, what you think is right in the sight of God and with your family. Like, I distanced myself. I said, could it help me? I said, sure, of course, but that's not my place. And lo and behold, what happened when I got the check in for part of the inheritance?
Didn't your wife pilfer it?
Well, let's just say 20,000 was missing once I gave the check to her and could not account for it. Before it
Right.
was supposed to be a separate account. Then over the period of months, close to another 20,000 was missing right before she left me.
Uh-huh.
Right. Of course, Nick. What's yours is ours. What's ours is hers, and what's hers is hers.
I love what you did there, Steve. You just, guy, for those who didn't follow along, he just said anything she decides is hers is hers. Well,
It goes back to what you're saying. You get somebody involved that wants, I don't know what I guess some semblance of control, and maybe
well, to some
what's their
extent,
motive? Why?
this is solvable through the law. If you write if you have a well-written will that does not, so the biggest thing is don't leave if for will specifically, do not leave ambiguity about who gets what. Okay.
Okay,
Because-
let's start at the beginning. Do not ever have a bank account with a cluster B person.
Please don't do this.
Wife, brother, sister, whatever.
Parents, whatever.
Do not have your money, have a separate bank account where your money is in your account. And then if you need some joint account, then you move money over to that joint account on a case by case basis for a specific purpose. So separate your finances to the greatest extent possible.
Please.
Then define everything. There's also a psychological term that they've used for dealing in intimate, well, I'll call it an intimate relationship, whether it's family or spouse, with a cluster B person. It's called gray rock.
Yep. I know which I've heard.
I didn't look into that, but it's you respond, but in a completely unemotional, matter of fact, just acknowledge. You don't add anything, no energy into it, no reaction, no additional information. It's just, oh, sun shining. Isn't it a nice day? Yep, it is a nice day. Something like that.
It's called the gray rock method. I've known about it for almost 20 years. And I've practiced it many times. But here's the thing. You need to understand that these people, even if you gray rock them, will not stop the manipulation, because this goes back to what I was saying earlier. They are genetically broken. There is no fix for this. but because they are genetically blind, they assume. So let's say you have a group of siblings, and one of those siblings is cluster B. That sibling is going to, the cluster B sibling is going to assume that the non-cluster B siblings are also going to behave in an emotionally manipulative, in a manipulative way. Because that's
Let
how
me say
they
it
would.
differently. Don't say genetic. Just say their brain is wired differently.
Okay, yeah, it is.
Could be genetic, could be environment, whatever. Their synapses work differently. They assume that everyone else's brain operates the way their brain does.
Correct.
It's not the case.
Normal.
Yep. Right. And so the point here is that they will never stop trying to manipulate you. And if one manipulation doesn't work, they will use another and another and another. It will not end. It will not end when you're in a relationship with a BPD chick. It will not end when it's your sibling. It will not end when it's your parents. It will not end when it's your children. Because
It will end.
you
know
well,
where it will end? If it will maybe not completely end, it will significantly diminish.
if you leave.
If you're divorced, if you have kids, it won't leave. But
Well,
if
true.
you're divorced and have kids, it won't leave until she finds another sucker.
Yes. Well, even then, you still have to deal with her and the kids, though. You still have to deal with her and the kids, though. So even then,
but it's diminished.
it is diminished. Yes. And
And you get and then say a prayer that her sucker doesn't wake up and kick her to the curb.
Oh,
yeah.
oh man.
Nick. So, but this is a key point that I really want to hammer home throughout this. It's just they view the world. They assume that you are behaving how they are behaving. They will not change. They are not fixable. And if actually, I'm going to use the verbiage of corruption. If you are in a corrupt environment and you willingly put yourself in that corrupt environment, over time, no matter how good you are as a person, how good your faith is, how good your how many prayers you say every day and every night, you will be corrupted by that. Okay. It is not avoidable. We have seen how many examples have we seen on YouTube of very, men who we thought were, just, wow, these
There's
are
a
upstanding.
proverb.
It's what's the proverb, Nick?
I want to correct it. I want to have the correct quote.
You want to have the correct quote? Okay.
Okay.
Well,
I want to say it correctly. I could give it off the cuff, but I don't want to misquote it. Okay. It says, "Do not be deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners." But it's referring to also Proverbs 18:24. A man that has friends must show them as friendly. Okay. Thank God. Bad company corrupts good character is another way to say it.
Proverbs 24 in let's see. Okay, why does it always populate that one for must him?
There's a feather.
But there is a friend.
There's another one.
Yeah, so 1824, a man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. That's New King James Version. Right.
Whoever Okay. Proverbs 13:20. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companions of fools will suffer harm.
Oh, okay. Now, fools is not exactly how I would describe cluster B, but I think the logic applies, right? he who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of the corrupt will be destroyed. The companion of the broken will be destroyed. Again, and this is a hard one, particularly for parents of children with cluster B. What do? Do you send them away? You say, look, and I don't have a good answer for that, except to say you must, the vigilance required of a parent of a cluster B, saints come to mind. And even then, I'm not sure that that's enough, because the cluster B knows that time is on their side. And if they have something that the parent wants access to, they can always, and I saw this done growing up and it pissed me off. How do you people not see that you're being manipulated because this person has access to something you want and they are using it to get you to functionally grovel? It's like, yeah, I get it. They have something you want. You know who else plays that game? I have something you want, just grovel before me to get it. Yeah.
Satan.
Thank you, Nick. Satan plays that game. We were talking about demonic influence earlier. Yeah, it's real. And there is demonic influence in cluster B. It's there. If you're not spiritual, well, okay. Just, you don't have to call it demonic, but you can call it derangement. You can call it corruption. They are not, they're not healthy people.
This is not the demonic, like we're talking about. Oh, objects are flying around the room and they're elevating right. And blah, 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 and they're talking in foreign languages, in tongues, yeah, whatever. No, it's just absurdities, just a dark feeling,
darkness.
Nothing makes sense. Okay, there can be mild. Okay, it's not manifested that you can actually see it. You can just feel it. Something's not right here. That can be demonic.
Well,
I'm not passing judgment on people. Just because it's demonic, just because they have a demonic influence over them, does not make them an evil person.
Correct.
They invited something into their lives, or maybe it happened through no fault of their own. I'm not passing judgment on them, but there still could be something demonic.
Steve,
if you don't want to call it that, fine. You're still better off moving, distancing yourself.
Steve, you should also think unregenerate.
I came up with a synopsis there, a one word, Steve, for what you're saying. It is cluster B makes it easier for this demonic influence. Makes it easier for demons to influence them. They are more easily influenced.
They're susceptible.
They're susceptible. Yes. And the funny thing is, in my experience growing up around this, the most easily manipulated people that I ever encountered were the cluster Bs, because the patterns that they follow were so predictable that getting them to that you could get them to do almost anything, as long as you understood how to stroke the ego, for all of them, it stroked the ego. They were actually very easy to manipulate if you understood what they were.
Like post-nut clarity.
Yeah, Nick, that's a great analogy. I love it. Right, but it's one of those things. But if you're not aware of it, if you're not aware of those patterns and you haven't studied it or grown up around it, then you don't realize that. And even then, it took a lot of study for me to realize that, oh yeah, by the way, I can manipulate these people. And so, but here's the thing I would say, even knowing all of that, knowing
You
that
want to
they,
manipulate them.
even knowing how to manipulate them, being around them. Well, okay. Nick, we were talking earlier about, don't confess your sins to these people. The more time you spend around them, the more details they gather to use against you later. Even
Yeah,
if you
I
think you're
know.
just saying some throwaway sentence, that goes into the hopper to use later. This is why removing yourself from their presence as much as possible in the case of family is so critically important. You cannot gray rock enough in family.
Yes, but if you have to interact, gray rock is the best
Correct.
because it
Correct.
provides the least information.
Correct. But it's not enough. You will drop information that they can use.
Oh,
they
we all
can and will
leak
use against you.
information all the time.
Yeah. I mean, well, and we in the Red Pill know this because we use women leaking information all the time to our advantage, right? Like, you guys know all this, okay? So,
well, Plutarch,
yes,
you started the stream saying you're not going 3 hours.
No,
Do you have the airport in sight?
No, I've actually hit
Because
all
you're
my
going to have to
points.
bring this plane in for a landing and then in the next half hour.
No, I've actually hit all my points. That this point about, the answer in all cases is to remove yourself from their presence. It really is in all cases. They need it. It would be good for society if we did more of it. It would be automatically healthy. It would be good for them spiritually. In all cases, there is only one solution, and that is to remove yourself. So
that is why I don't live near my ex.
that's a wise decision, Nick.
And that was the accumulated and independent wisdom of many family members. He says, "Do not go near."
Yes.
do not engage.
Yeah.
Do not engage. Whatever the word is, gray rock or gray whatever.
Yep.
Just keep it plain keeled. Here's the facts. Oh, good weather. That's kind of how I operate now.
That, Nick, in your case, because you have to, it is the only way, and you are correct to keep your interactions at a minimum. This will serve you well in the future, and I wish more men would. And that's really why this, I think that more than anything else is why this has been weighing on, as I said last week when I was teasing what we were going to be talking about, that this has weighed so heavily on my heart. There are so many problems with our culture and society that could be fixed by just ignoring the cluster Bs, removing them from life, from your life, all of them. So that's what I had to say. Those are all my points. We got through all my data because I can't not do a show without data, apparently. But hey, it's fun. Yeah, that's it for this week. I have no idea who's up next week.
I guess it's my turn.
Okay.
I do not have a topic yet.
Well, we'll find, guys, here's what's actually going to happen. I will get an email from Steve a few hours before the show saying, here's a topic. So that's
no. I usually tell you the topic ahead of time. I never tell you what any details of the topic is before, like 3 hours before.
Okay. Yes. So guys, what I really trying to say is, yeah, I'll find out about the same time you guys do. Saturday, we're going to be back. We were off last week because 4th of July holidays. I mean, honestly, who wants to get up early even on the 4th of July? So Elena will be back on Saturdays. She has a new idea she wants to try. It's a weekly segment idea. And Steve, I think
It's
you're
gonna
part.
get her in. I gotta give her some information, but it's gonna be greatly controversial, and it's gonna get her into massive trouble
Well, yeah, that sounds like
and
something
drama.
she would enjoy. Um, and this is partly Steve's idea. This is partly Steve's idea
Yeah,
too, but
I instigated it.
oh, totally. So it's so tune in next week for at the end of her show for the horror of the week. That's what she's calling it. And I don't know what the topic next week will be. We'll probably discuss after this. But she has. I think this is partly Steve reacting to all of the various horrors that get posted in our private chat, and he's looking for an outlet that doesn't involve spamming all of our phones. And so now,
Oh,
so now every week you guys will be gifted with the horror of the week. So
okay. Remember what I said? Women talk about two things. There's two general topics women talk about. Categories.
mhm.
Category 1. Kittens and babies are cute.
Mhm.
Category 2. She's a bitch and a whore, and I'm not like that.
I think we saw a lot of that playing out with the recent kerfuffle over Rachel Wilson on whatever podcast.
Okay, just okay. You got to kind of just make those broad categories.
Yep.
See if it fits. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying. I think I could put everything in one of those two categories.
So we are looking for an outlet that does not involve filling our phones with the latest horror of the week.
It's not going to change.
Oh no, no, I know. No, I know. It's just I think it's me being a little hopeful that maybe an outlet will help. All right, so that's Saturday. We don't know what the main topic will be, but join us at the end of the show for the horror of the week. And next week, you guys will just have to wait and find out with the rest of us, including Nick and I, when the what the topic will be. And yeah, look, guys, please share this video. I guarantee you know somebody who has been subjected to cluster B. Okay. And maybe they need to hear from somebody like Pastor Nick that it's okay that they have moral and spiritual coverage to walk away. I know I've talked to a lot of guys who they think that they have to keep up appearances with their wives, with their family, with whoever, right? You know, because that's the thing to do. And the answer is the only person you can hurt doing that, the only thing you can do is hurt yourself. You can't help them because they are broken in ways that is not possible to fix in this world. So yeah, so please share this video. If you like what you heard, drop a like. If you want to hear more of it, subscribes are always welcomed. And yeah, do you guys have any last thoughts, or did we exhaust you guys?
I'm not advocating. I'm actually not advocating just, ending up and just kicking them to the curb if you're married to them. But you might end up being kicked to the curb, and you should prepare beforehand. And you can do what you can ecclesiastically, try to bring her up on charges. It won't work. If they fail to discipline her, she's not submitting. Obviously, at that point, she's not putting out. She's abandoning you. So just prepare accordingly.
Oh, and from the Catholic standpoint, and Protestants should embrace this as well. You can separate before you divorce, or you can separate and not divorce. So you can get out. You can separate. That's not a sin in any Christian way?
Well, you could say separation could be abandonment in a sense. You're abandoning.
Oh, from
and
a
they
male
will.
standpoint, abandonment is financial. You just need to sleep under a different roof. You can interact. You can be supportive. You can talk. You can provide financial means. Separation is absolutely an option.
Yeah,
don't-
this is a
I
tough
don't
one.
agree. I don't agree.
This is a tough
don't-
one because personality disorders don't classically fall under the reasons for divorcing your wife. I would say unequally yoked. Sorry, guys, my voice is going. I would say it's kind of unequally yoked. You're yoked to somebody who is not okay, and the other thing to recognize here is that cluster Bs, particularly women, do derive a lot of emotional charge out of being married. The ones that want to be married really want to be married. I get it. There's the ones that don't, but they really don't want to be married. The best thing to do is to not get involved with them. But if you are involved with one, things get dicey. Especially if you're a Christian. If you're not a Christian, I think it's actually pretty easy. Just walk away and just walk away all the way. If you are a Christian, things get harder. And I think that's what Nick and Steve are getting at. It's not quite so clear cut. Yeah.
No, it's not.
I guess with
Okay.
that, we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
There was a firefight! Son of a